Across Europe, a wave of discontent is sweeping the countryside. From the heart of Brussels to the rural lands of Poland and France, farmers are driving their tractors into cities, blockading highways, and voicing their outrage. But what's fueling these widespread protests? Today, we dive into the roots of the farmers' protests across Europe and the implications for the future. In recent months, Europe has witnessed unprecedented scenes of protest. Farmers, feeling cornered by environmental regulations, rising costs, and unfair competition, have taken to the streets. Their grievances? A mix of economic strain, regulatory burdens, and a call for fairness in the face of globalization. Several key issues have ignited these protests. From the green transition policies of the EU to the influx of cheap Ukrainian grain, farmers argue they're at the breaking point. In Poland, protests have intensified, particularly in regions close to the Ukraine border, where farmers are taking a stand against the influx of cheap Ukrainian grain. The EU's decision to allow Ukrainian farmers to sell their products tariff-free has sparked a wave of discontent, highlighting fears of unfair competition and plummeting prices for local produce. In response to the mounting pressure, officials from Warsaw to Kyiv have engaged with protesters, seeking solutions to ease the tensions. Despite these dialogues, the core issues remain unresolved, leaving farmers frustrated and determined to continue their protests. While the protests share common themes, each country has its unique flashpoints. In France, the phase-out of diesel tax breaks has sparked fury. In Eastern Europe, the pain is compounded by cheap Ukrainian imports flooding the market. And in the Netherlands, nitrogen emission curbs have become a major point of contention. Overall, European farmers face economic challenges exacerbated by the EU's Green Deal. With stringent limits on chemical use and greenhouse gas emissions, farmers argue that these policies not only threaten their livelihoods but also make European products more expensive compared to non-EU imports. Both the EU and national governments have been forced to take notice. Concessions have been made, from delaying environmental regulations to offering financial support. But is it enough to quell the unrest? As Europe edges closer to key elections, the farmers' protests have taken on a new dimension. With the potential to influence electoral outcomes, the protests are a powerful reminder of the political and electoral risks posed by disenfranchised groups. These protests are more than just a domestic issue. They're a challenge to the European Union's vision for a greener future. As farmers demand their voices be heard, the very unity of EU policy faces a test. How Europe balances its environmental ambitions with the realities of its agricultural heartlands remains to be seen. Directly from the protesting farmers, we hear a common refrain: we're not against the environment, but policies must be realistic and fair. Their stories paint a picture of a sector under siege, fighting for survival in an increasingly regulated and competitive world. From the fields of Spain to the gates of the European Parliament, farmers' voices are united in a call for fairness and survival. Their demands are clear: a re-evaluation of the EU's agricultural policies and a recognition of the unique challenges they face. In a significant move, the European Union has shelved proposals deemed unfavorable by the farming community. This backtrack, especially on pesticide regulations, marks a pivotal moment in the EU's approach to balancing environmental goals with the needs of its agricultural sector. As the EU marches towards its 2050 net zero goal, the agriculture sector stands at a crossroads. Can innovative farming practices, technological advances, and a fairer policy framework reconcile these tensions? The future of European farming hangs in the balance. The farmers' protests in Europe are a stark reminder of the complex interplay between policy, environment, and livelihood. As Europe seeks to lead the world in sustainable living, it must not forget those who till its lands. The path forward requires dialogue, compromise, and a shared vision for a greener, yet equitable, future.